Look, I know a lot of attention is being spent focusing on Donald Trump's cabinet picks for like defense secretary because of his sexual assault allegations, or Trump's attorney general pick, Matt Gaetz, because of his child sex trafficking allegations and he had to withdraw his name. I know a lot of attention is being paid to people like Kash Patel, Donald Trump's FBI director pick, for his extremism, conspiracy theories, and attacks on democracy, and saying he's going to lock up the media. Look, I know a lot of attention is being spent on Donald Trump's cabinet picks, like the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, for parroting propaganda of Russia and other dictators abroad. I think it's also very important that we focus on some of these other picks, like who's Donald Trump picking to lead the CDC, which is in charge of the kind of overall vaccine plans. Who's Donald Trump picking to lead the NIH? Both those positions are part of the 9 administrative subdepartments that would ultimately report to RFK Jr., himself a virulent anti-vaxxer and someone who's spread the most heinous conspiracies. I think it is important that we talk about, for example, Donald Trump's CDC pick, someone by the name of Dave Weldon, a well-known anti-vaxxer. And he is someone who has spread lies about vaccines over and over again. Let's just start with some of the basic facts, okay? Vaccines for, say, measles, for example, which disproportionately impacts and kills children. Measles vaccines have saved around 94 million lives in the last 50 years. Of those, 92 million were children. Measles vaccines rank the highest in total lives saved by different childhood vaccines. This is the type of stuff that Donald Trump and his administration's attacking, and what his new CDC director is attacking, and head of NIH is attacking. His head of NIH believes in the herd immunity theory. Put people together, let them die, and herd them up and give them herd immunity, and just see what happens. Just put them all together and let the viruses spread. Just to be very clear, here's another stat: a vaccine collapse because of all the lies that are being spread. You want to talk about a Cold War with all of the disinformation being spread by foreign actors and being peddled here willingly by stooges here in the United States? I mean, you're talking about right now, vaccine uptake in the US has been following a worrying trend among this age group. Rates slid in 30 states in the last academic year, while in 40 states, exemptions grew. In 14 states, exemptions exceeded 5%. In Idaho, for example, where exemption rates have almost doubled in 5 years, 1 in 7 kindergarteners started school without proof of vaccines. Kids asking for vaccine exemptions, citing RFK Jr. stuff and all of the other kind of MAGA stuff. And we're seeing now like measles take hold, and things, and polio and things that were eradicated are going to rise again. Here's what it says as well. With Trump having nominated the outspoken vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as the Secretary of Health and Human Services, and the COVID herd immunity proponent Jay Bhattacharya to head the NIH, National Institutes of Health Biomedical Research Institution, there are fears that vaccine coverage could continue to erode. Kindergartners in the U.S. are required to receive 4 vaccines to prevent against communicable disease, but the proportion of immunized children fell again in the last academic year to below 93%. For all reported vaccines. By way of example, the World Health Organization says 95% of vaccine coverage for MMR is needed to prevent measles from breaking out. So we're now below the threshold because of this vaccine disinformation that has been spread. Let's take a look at how the New York Times is covering this. You know how MeidasTouch is covering it. Here's the New York Times coverage. Trump wants to shake up healthcare. Many Americans don't mind. As Meiselas says, I genuinely don't think I can handle the next 4 years of New York headlines like this. Really, Trump wants to shake up healthcare. Many Americans don't mind. One of the things that we know now is about 60% of Americans have below a 6th grade education, as MAGA Republicans have gutted education, and Donald Trump brags, "I love the uneducated." Well, it is a duty that we should all have to educate people on the severity and seriousness of these issues. We should be leaders, not just parroting the lies that people's brains and bodies now are being poisoned with. Given RFK's plans, measles could tear us a new one right now. And unlike COVID, it affects children and infants the worst. More communicable too. Given the information ecosystem, it's going to affect and kill lots of children voters, lots of children of Trump voters too. That's what potentially could happen. Take a look at this Dave Weldon fella, Trump CDC pick to bolster RFK Jr.'s anti-vax agenda. Could you imagine in 2024, I mean, you can after seeing COVID, that there's an anti-vax agenda, setting aside the COVID vaccine. You knew where they were going. They said it. They tried to act like, oh, we're just talking about the COVID vaccine, not polio, not rubella, not whooping cough, not all these other vaccines. No, they're going after them all. They don't want to make America healthy again. They want to harm America. And that's the mindset of a malignant narcissist. I mean, for those who are students of the AIDS pandemic in Africa, when AIDS spread in Africa, what was the inclination of the malignant narcissistic dictator? Denialism. Deny it, pretend it didn't exist. Like a miracle, it's all going to go away. Blame others for it. It's quite literally the playbook of Donald Trump and these people here in the United States of America. And we in the United States of America, when we would nominate who was going to lead HHS, Health and Human Services, the health department, when we were going to nominate who's going to lead the CDC, who's going to lead the NIH, these were all people who would say what Africa was doing is bad, and here's how we have to solve it. Dr. Fauci is credited for basically helping address the AIDS epidemic in the United States and to make it something that became ultimately treatable and something that could be dealt with through modern day medicine, and to stop the scourge, to stop the disinformation. So it's not without irony, it's probably not even the right word, that he's public enemy number one for MAGA. Could you imagine how MAGA would have handled AIDS when it happened? Just take a look at this Weldon guy. Weldon served 14 years. He's an outspoken critic of the CDC. He wanted CDC to be destroyed. In 2007, he introduced a bill to transfer responsibility for the nation's vaccine safety from CDC to an independent agency within the Department of Health and Human Services, right? So just think about Trump picking the guy who supported removing the studying of vaccines from the department that he now runs to hand it over directly under the auspices of RFK Jr. He also pushed a false claim that thimerosal, a preservative used in vaccine, is linked to autism and advocated for limits on abortion. If confirmed by the Senate, Weldon will have considerable influence, the most influence over vaccine policy in the United States. But I know the media is too busy getting angry at President Biden for pardoning Hunter Biden after Donald Trump picked Kash Patel, who said that he was going to lock Hunter Biden up forever. Again, the CDC is responsible for tracking and responding to infectious diseases, developing vaccine guidelines, collecting and analyzing health data, and managing public health emergencies. And here's what one of these groups says. He is one of us, the co-director of the anti-vax group Mississippi Parents for Vaccine Rights wrote on Facebook. Since before our movement had momentum, dreams come true. Every day, more good news, wrote another prominent anti-vaxxer in West Virginia. Such great news today, announced Autism One, a group that has platformed the anti-vaxxer who recommended chlorine dioxide, essentially industrial bleach, to cure autism. The organization also gave Weldon an award in 2013 because he agrees with that stuff. By the way, do you know the story of the 2019 Samoa measles outbreak and RFK Jr.'s role in that? Do you know that story? The 2019 Samoa measles outbreak began in September 2019. As of January 6, 2020, there were 5,700 cases of measles, and there were 53 deaths out of the Samoan population of 200,000. Over 3% of the population was infected. The cause of the outbreak was attributed to decreased vaccination rates among newly born babies from 74% in 2017 to 31 to 34% in 2018, even though the nearby islands had a rate of 99%. And when you go through the data and you go, well, how did that happen in Samoa when the nearby islands have that as well? Well, it turns out that in 2019, RFK Jr. visited Samoa to meet with local anti-vaccination activists, including Taylor Winterstein and Edward Tamanese, who he called a medical freedom hero. Kennedy also discussed vaccines with the then prime minister and campaigned against it on social media. After the measles outbreak started, anti-vaxxers credited the dozens of measles deaths to poverty and malnutrition, or even to the vaccine itself. That was his legacy in Samoa, by the way. And I think it's important to point that out because, again, it goes into the pathology here of RFKs, of Trumps. And just like when COVID happens, what do? They then blame others for it. And so, look, I know a lot of time is being spent to talk about all these other cabinet picks. And what I saw, 96% of the coverage on corporate media today is being focused more on attacking President Biden for pardoning Hunter Biden. But screw that, okay? We're going to educate you here on the MeidasTouch Network. We're going to talk about facts, and perhaps this presentation is dense and fact-based and a lot of details and data, but this is serious, serious stuff right here that we need to be talking about. And then you need to share this info. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.